Alright, video 6 in the series. Last time we finally got to some singing, and we'll do a little bit of singing in this one as well. But the main purpose of this video is to introduce you to two methods, the stop method and the recovery method, which in my opinion are the most productive methods for singing solfège. We'll also get to a little bit of conducting, as the examples that we'll see have time signatures. Also going to talk a little bit about something I touched on last time, which is the use of grace notes. Basically, for the notes you're not so sure of, using other notes to get those notes, which is a really useful technique. Let's actually talk about conducting, though, first. Conducting in 4/4. Now, this isn't a series on conducting, but conducting should really be an integrated part of your practice when learning and performing solfège. Helps us keep our place, can be useful for other reasons too, if you are directing other people, for example. Conducting is a good habit to get into. If you got a time signature, try to always conduct when singing solfège. Let's look at an example. It's actually going to be the 5th exercise in Denhauser's book. I'm going to leave out the first 4. Most of the exercises we're going to see are going to be very similar to what we've already done. But let's go ahead and look at exercise 5. Alright, you can see that this example is in common time, indicated by the C, and this is equivalent to 4/4. There are 4 quarter notes per measure. First 40 or so exercises in this book are actually in 4/4. If you've never conducted a 4/4 pattern, I'm going to show you what it looks like. I'm mirroring you. Basically, you're going to go down, left, right, up. Down, left, right, up. And every time you come down, you pretty much want to come down on the same point. It can be confusing to other people if your pattern's all over here. Even if you know where you are, they might not know where you are. So you want to develop good habits in that regard. You might take a look at some other videos on conducting if you're interested. But for now, let's get back to the example. You can see that this exercise consists almost entirely of leaps, thirds and fourths, which is a bit more difficult than singing stepwise passages. As I mentioned in the last video, it can sometimes be useful to get certain notes that are harder from those which aren't so hard. Some people might have difficulty, for the example, with the second note of this exercise. One option to get that note would be to use a grace note of mi to get that fa. Alright, let's actually start with the warm-up that we learned in the last video. If you remember, for orienting us to the key of C major, it goes do, mi, sol, la, fa, re, si, do. And so if I wanted to get the fa with a mi grace note, I might have a performance like this. Do, mi, fa. So basically the grace note is going to come on the beat like grace notes usually do. And basically I could also use 2 grace notes, re and mi, if I wanted to go straight up the scale, eliminate the leap entirely. It might be easier for me. So then I could go do, re, mi, fa. And if I wanted, I could eliminate almost all the leaps of an exercise, maybe up until a certain point when I felt comfortable with the intervals. And then I might have a performance like this. Do, re, mi, fa, mi, fa, sol, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, sol, la, si, sol, do, la, re, si, mi, re, la, do, sol, si, fa, la, mi, sol, re, fa, do, mi, si, do. So you can see what I mean by using grace notes. They're supposed to be there as an aid to help you get other notes. But let's move on to the next exercise and talk about the stop method, which I mentioned before. You can see that this one's in the same key with the same time signature. Like I said, there are going to be 2 acceptable methods to perform solfège, or 2 most productive methods. The first one is called the stop method. And in the stop method, we can stop our performance at any time if we're unsure of a note, as if time was suspended, basically. So I might just stop before the second measure here, or at other points where I'm unsure. Obviously, I'm just pretending, but if you're going to use stop method, it might go something like this. Let's use our warm-up again. Do, mi, sol, la, fa, re, si, do. Okay, so it might go something like this. Do, sol, do, re, la, mi, si, fa, do, sol, re, la, mi, re, sol, do, fa, si, mi, la, do, re, sol, do, fa, si, do. So you can see what I mean by that. Basically, like I said, you can stop at any point. The point is that when you're actually going in an exercise, when you're actually singing in an exercise, you don't want to make any mistakes, but you're allowed to stop to do the kind of thing that I was doing. Basically, I was using other notes to get the notes that I wasn't so sure of, similarly to the way we use grace notes. But let's go on to the next exercise and talk about the recovery method. So again, the same time and key signature. In this method, if I'm unsure of a note, I simply leave it out and keep conducting and keep track of where I am, basically. And as soon as I'm sure again of where I am, basically I'm going to start singing again. And just like in the stop method, the idea here as well is that you're not making any mistakes during the performance, but you're allowed to leave notes out. All right, so I'm going to do another demonstration, basically pretending again what it would look like if I was using the recovery method, if I blanked out on the 4th and 5th notes. And then basically on the 6th note, I again know where I am because it's a do, and there I start again, basically, and recover, so to speak. Basically, let's do our warm-up again. Do, mi, sol, la, fa, re, si, do. So then I might have a performance like this with the recovery method. Do, la, re, do, fa, re, sol, mi, re, fa, do, mi, si, re, la, do, sol, si, do. So that's what I mean by the recovery method. Basically, if you come to a point and you're unsure, you can't stop. Basically, you're going to have to keep going, and at some point, you're going to need to recover. And this can be really useful when you're sightseeing with other people, for example. So basically, always try to use one of these methods, either the stop method or the recovery method. Any mixture of both is just going to be considered sloppy, basically. But let's go on to the next example. This exercise is probably more difficult than any we've had up to this point. It contains leaps of 7ths and 6ths. But we can make this easier by doing what we did before, basically adding grace notes to find the notes we're less sure of. Then the exercise might look something like this, which still isn't easy, but might be easier for you than just singing the 7ths and 6ths with no further aid at this point. Let's try it. All right, let's use the warm-up again to orient ourselves to the key of C major. It goes do, mi, sol, la, fa, re, si, do. And try to sing with me and to use the grace notes that are written here. These might not be the grace notes that you would use, so everyone's going to have different grace notes that they find easiest to use, but just try to sing along with me and conduct with me as well. I'll give you one beat. And do, do, si, do, re, do, do, mi, do, re, fa, mi, re, mi, do, do, re, do, si, do, la, si, do. All right, and we're going to leave it at that for now. I'd recommend you go through all 10 of the first exercises in Dan Hauser's book, considering what we've just talked about. Pick a method, stop method, recovery method, stick with it, conduct and go through them. If you want, you can record yourself and go back and see what you need to improve on. It can be useful. Next time, we'll go on to the next exercises and talk a little bit more about strategy and the use of grace notes. But until then, happy sight singing.